Ayubowan Sri Lanka is brought to you by
National Lotteries Board, enriching our lives, enriching our land.
Good morning and welcome to Ayubowan Sri Lanka. Today we have with us Dr. Palitha Kohona. He is the current permanent representative of Sri Lanka to the United Nations and also the former permanent secretary to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Sri Lanka. Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning.
Doctor, now there's so many things to discuss, so I think we will first look at how the war started and actually ended. So in that context, I would like to ask you, Doctor, we all know that if there was an economic breakdown with respect to war, the war wouldn't have ended actually, and I think that is what also the Tigers wanted to some extent. Having said that, what sort of role did the government and the President and also the Minister of Foreign Affairs play to ensure that the supply of ammunition, arms and all the necessary equipment with respect to the war was continuously supplied?
We know that from the beginning that the LTT targeted the economy of this country. They bombed economic centers. They spread propaganda around the world to discourage foreign investments in Sri Lanka and to prevent visitors from coming here. And of course, this is nothing new. Terrorist organizations and rebel groups around the world have adopted this method, modus, for many years. LTT did not invent it, but they refined it to a point that was difficult to match by any other organization. And Sri Lanka suffered for 27 plus years. We suffered from that. The tourist intake dropped, foreign direct investment was reduced considerably, and confidence in the business sector waned. And of course the government countered this successfully over the last 4 years, since 2005, since Mr. Mahinda Rajapaksa became president. And we managed to fight the LTT during that period and also succeed in eliminating them within this country. There were a number of steps that we took. We engaged the international community so that the development assistance that we were receiving continued to be received. In fact, when certain countries under LTT pressure, especially from their propaganda arms, reduced the amount of development assistance that was being made to Sri Lanka, or actually in some cases suspended assistance, we successfully turned to other friends for this. And it was essentially President Mahinda Rajapaksa's approach that saw us through this difficult period. When we were threatened with economic sanctions for pursuing the LTT, when we persisted in going after them, some countries simply either suspended or curtailed their development assistance. And Mr. Rajapaksa turned our attention to other countries which continue to help us. Now, as you know, the persistence from Japan continued to flow to this country. China became a major development assistance partner. India, Iran, Russia, Korea, etc. made up the gap that was created by certain Western countries reducing their assistance. I recall in 2006, the United States, which had made available $500 million from its Millennium Challenge account, suddenly suspended the availability of this funding. And of course, we didn't sit on our hands and look at the sky in agony. We turned away to other friends, and we received huge amounts of foreign funding for our development program. Iran, for example, following the President's visit to that country, agreed to provide $1.9 billion And you can see the results, the improvements to the refinery in Colombo, the Umawe project in the south, etc., were the result of the president's relationship with Iran. Iran also, at a very critical period, when oil prices were skyrocketing around the world, made available to us a credit facility which enabled Sri Lanka to purchase its requirements of oil without causing a dent in our foreign exchange situation.
So basically, Doctor, you are saying that there was a refashioning of the foreign policy to meet the demands of the war. Is that what it was?
It's probably not correct to say that we refashioned, but we expanded our horizons. We did not tell anybody that we were also re-examining our relationships with them. No, we didn't. We maintain our relationships, and we will continue to maintain those relationships. In fact, we will work hard at improving those relationships. But areas which had not come under our or fallen within our purview, not received adequate attention in the past, now began to receive attention in a much bigger way. The result, as I said, was that our development assistance program continued, and our arms purchases, which were absolutely essential to deal with the LTTE, also continued unabated. In fact, in some areas, we began to receive much larger quantities of weapons. And remember, the LTTE was a brutal terrorist organization, and it targeted our economy, it targeted our military, it targeted our leadership. And of course, they needed a response that would result in a victory for this country. I must also say at this stage that the government in 2006 tried very hard to talk to the LTTE, to bring them back to the democratic fold. I recall when I was the head of the Peace Secretariat, I participated in 2 rounds of negotiations, one in February 2006, the second in October 2006. I also led a delegation myself to Oslo. The LTTE side was led by the late Tamil Chelvam. None of these efforts produced any results. On the contrary, the LTTE walked out from all these negotiating opportunities on the most spurious of excuses. So a democratically elected government, a representative government, which had the endorsement, the mandate of the vast majority of these people, had no choice but to use an alternative method to put an end to this era of terror. The LTT, of course, you have to remember, in 2006, and all of us remember that period well, launched the most dreadful campaign of terror in the country. School children were targeted, devotees at temples were targeted, Christmas shoppers were targeted, not to mention leaders like Gerard Fernando Pulle, who was killed during that period. And we had no choice but to go after them. And then in order to go after the LTT, we needed the weapons. The LTT itself had accumulated an enormous arsenal of weapons. We are uncovering these weapons even today on a regular basis. We are still unearthing buried caches of weapons. The LTT was prepared to go to war and was insistent on going to war. It had no intention of ending this conflict in a peaceful manner. So as a representative, democratically elected government, President Mahinda Rajapaksa's administration had no choice but to respond. And in order to respond, we had to ensure that our economy remained stable, and also that our supplies of weaponry remain constant.